Remix. 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 Remix.
Oh, yeah. Welcome out, everybody. This is the Remix Morning Show. Right here on Black Liberation Media, in case you didn't know. And we about to get dumb on y'all real quick with some boom bap breakfast. And we talking about big up to Hip Hop History Month. November, we are here, Scorpios. Yeah, sending out the call. But yo, I can't do this by myself, so I gotta introduce y'all to Dr. Jared Barr and Geechee. Tell me how.
What's up, good people? Tell me when to go. Yeah. That's a nice intro right there. Hey, what's up, good people? What's up, remixers?
Wassalamu alaikum.
Wassalamu alaikum.
So my brother.
That just sounds so wild when you say, yeah. Brother Jamil in the building.
Oh, I thought Air Dog was trying to say that himself.
I mean, that's what it.
No,
Wassalamu alaikum.
No. I know he was reading something.
Oh no, I grew up in Trenton, so we came up around poor righteous teachers and 5%ers all day. So,
So it's Hip Hop History Month. I didn't even know it was Hip Hop History Month.
Yes, it is. So y'all gonna get a ton load of hip hop history from me. So be ready.
Well, that's why it's serendipitous that I picked this background today, because this is hip hop history too.
It definitely is.
And this is what you get when you don't deal with the contradictions in hip hop and black and other histories. This is yeah.
We ain't died yet.
Because everybody voted. We voted.
Hey, Doctor, what's the day's mathematics since you are up there?
Knowledge born. No, I'm just playing. I don't know. But hey, you thought should I do it in my RZA voice off the Wu-Tang? So today's mathematics. It's not a sport. My man killed that RZA accent. It was terrible.
Well, we know who don't have the day's mathematics.
Exactly. It ain't me. It was good seeing you Monday there, Geechee.
Monday,
Black Man Lab.
Oh my goodness. Out the gate.
Damn.
Leah Boggs. I have a bone to pick with Doc Jab. What I do now? Oh my goodness.
What didn't you do, Jab?
How should we address this, Leah? Are you gonna put it in the chat? Or are we dropping the link for you to come on screen?
Leah on screen?
I don't know. I'm asking. Am I getting an email? What is the
Leah not coming on the screen.
Renee said we all do. What?
Leah got a 9 to 5 like Dolly Parton. She ain't coming on the screen.
What I do?
They probably mad because you made us anticipate watching that stuff this morning and last night.
Yo,
John Hopeless Bryant.
Salute to Brokish. And if you haven't seen the latest episode, if you aren't a member of the Patreon and didn't see it early, shame. And get caught up.
Brokish broke the internet.
They need to with that. We need to make this video break the internet. They did us a service. This was a confession.
Hey.
So I don't know. I know we're talking about it tomorrow on Saturdays with Renee. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I just want to encourage everybody to, if you haven't seen it, go back and see it. I'm going to watch it again and take even more notes.
But you know what I wonder though? With all the the class antagonisms in rap music today, I wonder if, our audience will probably, know that it's full of shit, but I wonder if like the average audience will feel turned off by his silliness that he had all day.
So I honestly think that there is, definitely do all of those things. again, I'm biased by my experience with my students, and a lot of students come in, again, they don't know who John Hope Bryant is. So I'm not suggesting that he is himself one-to-one directly delivering all of this with his celebrity. No, what I'm saying is he's part of a collage of an environment that has been produced to produce these messages, to create an echo chamber, so that everywhere young people in particular go, all they're hearing is, you don't need to struggle. You don't need, there's nothing wrong that you can't fix. And by that, they mean by following a sort of American capitalist, black capitalist mythology around entrepreneurialism, voting, just general political behavior. So that's why she didn't come to class on Wednesday. I was disappointed. The heavy interlocutor from Monday, who was assuring me and all of our classmates that I don't know what I'm talking about, because you can buy real estate like her father and flip it and do this, that, and the third. Those are the students that the Bryants of the world end up impacting. It reverberates so that they come in, and then and then even a faculty or a discussion that means to be interruptive can't be. So
I want to test your theory. So I was at Black Man's Lab with Air Doctor. And Air Doctor, I'm curious, do you know who John Hope Bryant is? And do you think the audience that's normally there would know who he is? Because there's a lot of young people in that space then.
Yeah, but probably as young people know. Young people don't know about him. Older people probably, just from a little more like I would say like 20s to 40s maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but other than that, I don't think a lot of people know about him. Just social media people mostly.
We strive to be part of the 5%ers, not the 20%ers around here. The 20%, he said, that are of every community that are bums. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Remember, you didn't catch that part? That was one of my favorite
parts. I only got to the first beginning when he talked about he started 30 businesses, and he has the biggest entrepreneur or whatever.
And 700 homes. He's got 700 homes.
He a slumlord, huh? Got it.
I mean, it sounds like my homeboy that played poker. He always was like, yeah, man, I can get in there and win. I win all the time. But he don't. He just does it. I was like, I don't feel like that's safe.
Nobody does.
Yeah.
Nobody wins all the time. That's the point with gambling.
But so in terms of like the financial literacy industry, right? So you have the Earn Your Leisure, you have your John Hope Bryant, but I'm not even sure if they can be considered, or he can be considered, the biggest, because is Grant Cardone and some of those white type of Dave Ramsey, aren't they the financial literacy people too? And I know they got way more influence and bag than them.
But again, I haven't figured out. I think Erica's work addresses this more than I've ever seen. Her forthcoming work, and maybe more so as it gets further along, which is that I don't know exactly how you would measure the particular impact one versus the other. My argument has been that in terms of impacting Black audiences, the Bryants of the world, the Earn Your Leisures of the world are more impactful than even the more large name white folks. Because that's their point, to be that Black face. So Grant Cardone, I don't know how many times has he been on Roland Martin. Bryant has been on several times, with some regularity. Does Grant Cardone go on The Breakfast Club? So I don't know to what extent there's that overlap. That would sort of be my point, that yes, that is the point. There are always bigger whites involved, but they're not the ones talking directly to Black audiences. And so when it comes to Black audiences, I don't know that. And again, that's part of my argument. They don't, again, the students who end up in my classroom, they don't know who Bryant is. They just know that reverberating argument that he makes, it just gets distributed because, of course, the people who watch him make an occasional appearance on Roland Martin or Breakfast Club or elsewhere, they're not necessarily following him verbatim. They're just picking up some of the messaging, and then it just sort of gets supported everywhere they go. Everywhere they go, somebody's saying, start a business, do a business, invest. And then when they say, if you then press them, they might say, oh, I got that from Bryant. You should check out my man Bryant.
So Jay Ball, let me give you a scenario. A student comes up and says, how do I make money and not be a capitalist? Go.
I wouldn't argue that you can. I would argue that the question is, one, I might hit him with the Dr. Turner question. The question isn't can you make 100,000? The question is, can you live off of 30? And then what do you do with your money? So that would be one question. Another question would be that I'm not asking you to make money without being a capitalist. I'm asking you to join efforts to make capitalism go away. So obviously, individually, we're all participating in this economy, and for one way or another, for better or for usually for worse, we're helping it along. So that's not the point. The point isn't to get people to act individually to change their individual behavior vis-a-vis employment. The individual behavior I want them to change is to not being part of an organization, to not being part of efforts to support alternative movement building. So that would be really that's not what would be. That is basically what I say to them all the time. I'm not asking people to, and especially I'm not telling young people to do what few of us have done. I'm not asking people to just throw themselves, sort of sacrifice themselves individually with no sort of forethought. I'm not telling them to abandon their academic interests or their career interests, at least initially. I'm asking them to find ways to contribute to these other efforts, so that we can all, so that more of us are involved and less is put on the individual. That's
because go ahead.
No, I'll say, or in short, just tell them to go get their labor exploited by a capitalist, and then you can make money and not be a capitalist.
Well,
I mean, we could have it. That is part of the conversation. I mean, we could have part of the conversation being, well, what does it actually mean to be a capitalist? I mean, going out and working doesn't technically make you a capitalist. In fact, it just means you're selling your labor to a capitalist. Right. So these are the kind of conversations depending on, is this happening quickly in the hallway? Is this part of a class discussion? How much time do I actually have? That's that. But in general, that's the trajectory I'm going in with those answers.
I'll tell you who can capitalize off the moment. Okay, Franklin. Damn. There it is.
There it is.
The community capitalist. You're the community capitalist.
Word? Is that my new nickname?
Community capitalists.
I like it.
So what about entrepreneurs? As for me, I wanted to be an entrepreneur because I was smarter than employers. So I was like, I'm not working for this guy. I'm going to go ahead and have my own business. I mean, and that's how I looked at it. I'm not working for somebody that's dumber than me.
In a different day, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, jump in. Go ahead. That's fine. You're already caught up. You've heard enough.
I don't completely agree with you in terms of my working life. I'm not in the entrepreneur space, but I've usually been like, why the fuck am I working for you? What do you know?
Exactly.
That's been part of my bad attitude. It's like, once you say something dumb, I was like, what? It's like, I'm not taking ownership.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I can run this business better than you, so why not have my own? That's how I look at entrepreneurship. I'm not looking at it like, ooh, I'm going to get rich. I'm going to, it's more like, nah, I could do this.
No, most people don't. So the only conflict I have is that when I look at the data shows that doing what you're saying to do doesn't really work. And it doesn't help that many people. And then, of course, at the end of the day, you cannot have a situation where you have more bosses than workers. I mean, at some point, somebody got to do something. So that's why I keep saying, let's focus on the outcome. And really, I do mean, like, I don't want to have to be I keep saying that I don't want to have to be a good businessman to survive. Like, you shouldn't have to be what if I am just the quote unquote dumber worker? Like, why then does that mean I have to suffer out here? Like, why do you, just because you're smarter than me, if in fact that's true, why does that mean that you get to live entirely off of my labor and I get to suffer? Why what should be appreciated is the fact that your genius and intelligence to lead is as necessary as my ability to do what you tell me to do. And if we don't have each other, there is no product, there is no wealth, there is no profit. So all I'm saying is it should be split. And your genius should be rewarded because you get to make the decisions, and my less genius gets to be rewarded because I'm doing the work that produces the wealth for you. And we flipped it all around to be taught that just because you're smarter, you deserve everything else. And then we flipped it even more around to say that I am boss because I'm smarter, and therefore workers are less intelligent, which is also nonsense.
Wow.
So that's what I'm trying to say. I don't really give a fuck. I just don't think anybody should be suffering like this.
Also, I think, like, just like you said, having a conversation to define capitalism, we would also have to define entrepreneur or entrepreneurship, because I guess the normal definition has in it an importance to the economy, which means they create jobs. So if you're an entrepreneur who don't create jobs, are you really an entrepreneur? Are you a sole proprietor? Like, what exactly would you call entrepreneurship? Because I think a lot of times, like some of Jared's data that he pulled, if we have I don't know how many black businesses, but 3 million of them have 0 paid employees. Like, are those really entrepreneurs? Or
well, the last thing I saw, we don't even have that. They said it's like 160,000 black-owned businesses at this point. So it's most of those are single employer. You're working for yourself. The average worker working for these black-owned businesses does not make more than the average worker in the rest of the economy. They're almost all businesses relegated to service and the lower end of the economy. So there's and then of course their consumer base are mostly black poor workers. So if that's who you're targeting, it's a wrap. So that's why I'm saying the genius that goes into starting the new business at the end of the day cannot.
And his real customer base. So now that I know who you're talking about, his real customer base is the government and contracts. He doesn't serve, like, yeah. When I heard, I didn't get to listen to the whole thing, but the first 35 or 40 minutes, I was like, B, if you've done all of this, I need to see the proof. I need to see, where is this astonishing, like, success rate of pulling people there and there. Like, you would see movement on the economic dial like you've never seen before. If this guy was this so-called successful in moving black people to wealth or whatever, these are all like talking points, because his real consumer is, how do I get contracts to do this work, or how do I get grants to make me do this work? He doesn't give a fuck about black people on the ground, except his tools to make him look like or project himself as somebody who's actually doing something big in the community or whatever. And then he has real capitalist sponsors who can use him also to project and say, and to keep that same ideological thing going of, look, if you only work harder, if you only pull up your credit score, don't think about the larger overall system and how it works. That's none of your business. What you need to focus on is you and your low self-esteem because of slavery, right?
And your mindset.
And your mindset.
Your mindset.
If it's all about your mindset, don't you worry about what these rich people in the corner are doing with all the government people that are elected, and don't you worry about where the minerals of the earth are going. Don't you worry about the paid labor that I'm paying. That's none of your business. What you need to focus on is pulling up your pants, right? And coming to my financial literacy class. Because if I get your credit score from 550 to 710 or some shit like that, you're wealthy. You're a winner. And if you can't get that to happen, then there's something dumb within you. And so that's when it takes it too far. Like, that's when it's like, it's not even about how, like, I think I might be smarter than this person or that person, or I know something more than this person, that person. Now you're setting up you're continuing in a plethora of sort of a propagandist history that, again, is meant to tell people that a system is not at work. And we don't get this. Just to be clear, when the United States evaluates when you get leaders evaluating socialism or communism, they never say the workers are dumb. They say the system is corrupt. The system is bad. They evaluate whether or not the gross national product is this compared to our capitalist markets, and therefore we're rating this, and this, all this other stuff, right? They're giving this overall largesse view, but they don't do that we don't get that here. What we get here is poverty is because you're a simpleton, or you're dumb, or you're not smart, or you don't try hard enough, right? So all of that to me is just some built-in, like he serves a larger purpose. Than what he knows what he's doing. Like he's not ignorant of, he has complete agency. And he's well suited and wants to be in that role. So that's what he looks like to me, is somebody who's serving a particular purpose, maybe getting a little bank off of it, and dealing in, again, sloppy stereotypes. He spoke live at one of the Cop City rallies, rally that the mayor called.
Him and Andy Cool.
And the mayor called in the heat of the Cop City stuff in Atlanta. The mayor called a press conference, I should say, not a rally, but a press conference where he brought out all the bougie black men in particular, but all the bougie blacks, the elected officials, the so-called business leaders, the preachers. He brought them all out, and this dude jumped up and spoke, and he gave. So I think I missed this part on the interview, but he did the whole everybody's got a fucking uncle or aunt.
Yeah, he did that. It's the same talking points.
Yeah, so I was like, he did the whole, like, my Pookie is a criminal, and I got to call the cops on the criminal, and I'm tired of these criminals in my family. Aren't you?
Wow.
We got to straighten them out. He did all of that. So just think about it. Yeah.
Well, Kamal, there was there was one flaw in the methodology of Erica and Amber's approach. And you touched on it a minute ago when you talked about, what'd you say, sloppy something? What was it that you just said? Messy
sloppy
something?
stereotypes.
Sloppy stereotypes. They didn't engage in the sloppy stereotype of the Kamal research method. They didn't do the Kamal check. So I would encourage you to do the Kamal, because when you're talking about people worried about their family members and getting rid of it.
Oh no, he ain't got one, do we? Oh my God.
You gotta look up. So the sisters just, they didn't, all the great research they do, they just are not, they're just not, petty enough.
We got picks? Do we got picks?
No, I'm saying that. Well, I was assuming you were looking up, but I'm just saying.
I was over here looking. I was like,
yeah. I'm just saying, but all of this is because none of us have risen to the level with the appropriate mindset, because we are not yet
the coach's top thought leader.
So we still have a ways to go. But yeah, that was the one thing that I thought was flawed. I don't know. Is it not happening fast enough?
No. In fact, I think he does have a.
Oh, no way.
Oh, no, she's black.
Yeah. I think she.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was wrong about that.
Yeah. She bliggity
No
black.
way. Oh,
Yeah.
my bad. Okay, I must have been looking at the wrong one. Okay, my bad. All right, I owe an apology. My bad, John.
Because I did take a little look the other day and I didn't see it, so that's why.
My bad, John. My bad, John. Is she the first one?
Nah, both of them black.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm wrong again.
We're like,
That's all
we're
right.
disappointed on that one.
He's like, damn.
That's all right.
Yo,
My
goodness.
bad.
But you know what? I ain't go front. I feel like the person in charge should get more money than the employee.
Oh Lord.
But maybe, I mean,
Wait, let me
maybe
finish.
you're correct. Maybe you're slightly correct. Maybe that is true. But let's say this.
What
Does
up?
that mean the employees don't deserve health care, pensions?
Oh, I never said
time
that.
off? Well, this is the point of it. It's like, in no system, even in the socialist system that's working correctly, it's not going to be everybody across the board gets the same amount at the same time or whatever. That's not going to happen, right? But the point is whether or not people's needs are met through their work, right? Or through what the government is supposed to do. That is the big thing. And whether or not people are exploiting them, right? So even if you get paid more, should you get paid billions and billions of dollars while your employees don't have health care? Which you should get paid billions and billions while your employees don't have pensions, while they're getting injured at work, why they can't see their family because they have to work 80 hours while you're taking like big time vacations and buying private jets. So there's a difference between thinking, hey, I started something. And again, it's not, and it's not even controlling the means of production, but I started a company and the company was successful. Is the company's success based on the fact that you are exploiting the employees? Are they not able to make their living, right? So part of it isn't just strictly around, again, the fallacy of like, oh, if I make more than the next person, then, and I'm smarter, I should benefit. The fallacy of the argument, it becomes, what's happening with the people who are helping generate that wealth? Are they able to satisfy their needs also? Are they able to take their own vacations? Are they able to pay for their kids' schools? Are they able to have health care and all the rest of it, right? That is a better view than whether or not you think everybody should be making the exact same amount. Like that's not really realistically, again, in anyone's socialist experiment, how things truly work. Now, some people may go far and say, well, at some point, you may have some managers, but you don't need a boss, right? The owners get to make the ultimate decisions, and the owners may even hire somebody to run something in owner cooperatives or owner workforce situation. So there's a lot of different things to experiment with, but at the base level, right? At the base level, the thing to think about is, are people being exploited for their labor? And most of the times they are. And when you think about how the capitalist system, it survives off of that. So it's not like it just happens. It's part of what capitalism is that you're going to work and you're going to shut the fuck up and work. And whatever it takes for you to dig those minerals out the ground, you're going to do that. And if half the time, if there's no regulations in place, then you're going to exploit even further, right? So part of it isn't, even for me at least, to take away the idea of, oh, I built this business and so I deserve the fruits of my labor. Usually you built it because you've had help or support once you reach a point where you're actually building something and it's not just like the sole proprietorship or something. And all those people also well taken care of at the very least. There could be other discussions and arguments, but at the very least, all those people taken care of.
Yeah. So I think even in Cuba, if I remember, like the pay is contingent upon how far you go in school. And even when you are higher paid than others, it's no more than 2/3 the salary. But kind of to Kamal's point, as the person who take the risk, most of the time you're getting capital, getting a loan from a bank, and then you're leveraging that loan to start a business. And then the people who are working, you're exploiting their labor so you can finance that loan or pay the loan off. So ultimately that risk thing, I'm not sure that's always correct.
Yeah, the real capitalists aren't even taking a lot of risk. The real capitalists are getting, they're getting, I'm going to the government. Who gave land for the railroads, right? It was like they bought the land. That shit was given to them, right?
Right.
Who's giving them government contracts? Who's giving them the access to oil, right? That's not just like I found. Someone's giving you that land. Someone who else is in charge, who has a military, basically, that's putting people around that land, who's pushing indigenous people off those lands, are saying, oh, no, come exploit this. And whatever you get, we get our personal cut, and then you give some taxes and all that kind of stuff. So it's not even the idea of like people, again, these are some bootstrap ideological things that are handed to us to make us believe that the idea of entrepreneurs or self-made people, classically self-made men, are folks who, they started from the bottom, or they worked hard, or they were these intellectual high. I mean, a lot of times it's like, who was the best gangster, right? Who could take over territory? Who had the support to take over territory? Who could exploit this better, right? So it's not. I mean, and in Cuban socialism is not always working properly either, right? Because part of the issues is that the ways in which the resources, because you can drive. One of the things that again the capitalists like to bring up sometimes in Cuba is that if you drive a cab, you may make more money than an actual doctor because you're getting paid of dollars, you're getting paid from tourists, you're getting paid under the table and all that kind of stuff and all that to survive. You selling shit on the side. So there's things that needs support and work there too. But all of these, you know, again, we're throwing a lot of propaganda that just makes us go like it's all our, again, and it's driven to be purposely. It's all our fault. It's all our fault as the workers or the individuals. And when you don't pay back debt, a lot of people, not Jared, but most people feel bad. I felt when I don't pay for a long time, I had to get
Debt to who?
All of it made me feel like I wasn't a man, or I was not fulfilling responsibilities. I had to get out of that mindset at some point, because it was like what am I?
I never had that.
I know you did.
Me neither.
To a person, yeah. If I owe you money, I would feel horrible. But to them, man, I can't wait to tell them I have no problem not paying. But just quickly, one thing real quick, that the other part is that we always have to remember, first of all, Rockefeller said competition is a sin. So John D was clear. I'm not here to take risks. I'm not here to even consider a loss. I only get into spaces where I know I'm going to win, and I set the terms in advance to win. By the way, it's his industry, and that railroad industry, that produces modern day public relations or propaganda in this country, turning journalists, so-called, into PR reps to cover up train wrecks and abuses of labor and stuff like that. But the real point, the other point, to just follow that same metaphor, Rockefeller didn't develop the technology to do trains, to lay tracks, to develop the spikes that go into he didn't do any of that. Just like Musk didn't develop any of the technology he's claiming. In fact, he stole it. He took inheritance money from his colonizer families. He's taken all of these benefits to get. So in my version of the world, that is de-incentivized, because the people who are producing all of this, most of whom produce, whether it's art or technology, they're producing it not to make money. At the very beginning, people are doing this because they want to do something to improve the world. It's the owners that come in later that then put their patent and their label and then turn it into this and that and da-da-da-da-da. And then they produce the propaganda that says you should valorize me. You should praise me for taking such a risk. Lastly, it is just as much a risk to get up and go to work every day when you have no insurance, insufficient pay. That's the risk that people take every day when they walk out their house, to go earn money for somebody else in the hopes of putting a roof over their head and having something to eat.
So Air Doctor, I would challenge you to have that conversation with young people in terms of understanding. So even the capital that comes from the bank is from stolen labor, and even the tax incentives or the tax benefit breaks that they get, that is tax being funneled up from working class people. So everything, and as Jared says, the brick and mortar or the train tracks that's being built, like, they ain't doing that either. So essentially, they're just jumping in and taking advantage of everybody, and they have some kind of political power or connections to actually get in those places. So in terms of working for it, nah.
Well, I guess
let me just throw in one more.
Yeah, you've been going on for a while, buddy.
I know. I got a lot to say about.
Can I jump in for a second before you get to your last part?
Why do you get to why do you
go ahead, man? Just get to your little last part. You got 15 seconds.
He's smarter than your boss.
The last part is, and what people don't also talk about is that it is the government that is creating, through our taxes, a lot of these products that we think are being created by private industry. Mm-hmm. All of and I know you don't take all these, but a lot of the healthcare medicines are through government research, contracts they give to colleges. The internet was military, a lot of the military technology, and then they find commercial uses for them and basically give them away to a lot of these private enterprises, and then all the government contracts, which make a lot of these companies huge so-called successes where they couldn't survive or they weren't making war machines, right?
And plus, they all went to school on taxes we paid for. We paid for their school. Like, everybody chipped in on that nonsense.
So the employer has to, okay, let's say we got a candy shop, right? So the
Mhm.
employee, this
Oh
employee
my
has
God.
this one job. This one job is to put the wrapper around the candy.
You said
All right.
employer. You said
The
employer.
employee has
Okay.
one job to put the wrapper around the candy. All right, the employer has to deal with payroll, has to deal with calling and getting the product there. If the employee doesn't show up to work, then the employer has to step in and do some work. We're talking about a smaller business, not a big corporation. So let's see if we talk about my pizza place back in the day. Employee didn't come. I had to step in. I had to call for a product. I had to do a lot more than just put wrappers around the candy. So
smaller?
let me finish. Let me finish. So having to do a lot more jobs feels like maybe I should get a little more pay. Is that not fair?
You had to put the drugs properly in the pizza. So that they
See,
can
you joking, but what I'm saying
but
is,
the
Sid,
flaw-
you said
but the
small. You
flaw-
said smaller, so your payroll ain't gonna be that long either.
I had
So
8
The
employees.
but the flaw in all of that is that you're skipping stuff. So in that minimal context, sure, you're doing more jobs, you're doing more work, you're doing it for more hours. You maybe deserve more pay. But that's different from the logic that just because you're the boss, you deserve more pay. Because, for instance, as soon as your business if it were to have grown, you would have hired people to do all of those things. And the more your business grows, the more people you would have hired to do all those little tasks that you were just describing while you went off and did nothing or something else, claiming that because you're still the boss, you still deserve more than everybody, including these new hires that you would be hiring to do all of those tasks. So that's the point I'm getting at. It's not to say that everybody just gets everything equal no matter what the hell they do or don't do. I'm not this is part of that. This is part of the claim that comes with the attacks on socialism and communism that capitalism wants to produce, that without the capitalist incentive, everybody's just going to lay around all day, which is just ridiculous. So it's the reverse. It's to say, no, we want to do stuff. We just don't want to be the only ones not benefiting. So that's all I'm trying to say. In that context you're describing, sure. But as I said, the intent would be to grow and grow and grow. And then that person well, no, just in terms of growth in that one business. And while that person that you're talking about is just putting a wrapper on the candy, is still only making the same thing that they were getting paid at the beginning, even as your business grows and grows and grows, and you're making more and hiring more people at even bigger salaries and then making more than even they are making while you do less and less and less. That person who's still wrapping the candy, they're still making the same amount.
So it could be done as long as you don't exploit your employee. It could be done.
I think that's where we started. That was the whole point.
You don't exploit your employee.
But I think after that, what you will do is you will exploit the employee's labor until you can buy a machine to make the wrapper, and you can fire most of the people that you hire.
That's another point.
Yeah.
So you're not just give it up, bro.
Give up. That's what I'm saying. It's no way you're gonna be able to tell people to give up entrepreneurship. There's no way I could.
It's not so much about people giving up entrepreneurship. It's about stop thinking that entrepreneurship is somehow the salvation for what ails us as a society. Entrepreneurship is not saving Black people from poverty.
It's not.
And it doesn't make you a better person either. Opening a candy store doesn't make you better than the person who's running the cash register.
It makes you not scared to follow dreams.
That's cool. And that's
Who
cool.
dreams?
But so
whose dreams is not working for somebody and doing something I love doing. Like if I was a cook. If I was a cook and I love cooking and I don't want to work at Popeyes and I know I can make better chicken than Popeyes, then I want to go ahead and open a restaurant.
Great. That's great. But no one is but you're stuck on something like no one is telling you not to follow your quote unquote dreams. People are saying that you following your dreams does not also mean that you get to exploit people because you figured out a formula, or you think you figured out a formula to make better chicken. Right? Or whatever it is. Like it's just like you can't, that the two don't equate each other. It's like no one is saying that, oh, if I do this or I do that and I make some resources, I shouldn't be using my resources for the most part within limits to make myself happy. The question again becomes, how are you making your resources? How are the other people who are helping make those resources also being treated? And those people have a right to be treated as human beings.
It's
Just to
even
get
in the
over-
way you just described it, ear doctor, where you said it's you're not scared. So it's not that again starts to fix itself to that dominant narrative that poor people are poor because they're lazy, they're scared, they don't want to take
Yeah.
risks. So all these poor, scared people. So the person you're hiring to work is just some poor, scared, ignorant fool who deserves subservience. That's
No, how many times we invite somebody on the screen, but they scared to get on here?
I mean, that's different. But
so
listen,
then what? Then what? So then what? Do they then deserve
Here's
to
an-
never be heard?
Dre.
Does their
Ed
argument
Doctor.
deserve never to be heard?
Dre.
That would be
Doctor.
the argument.
Here's another example, right? And I'm gonna use an example from one of your Morris Brown brothers.
Oh snap!
Oh wow.
So if you talk about chicken, right, and you got KFC with all these employees, they got like 30 black employees, right?
Mhm.
And you start a food truck cooking your own chicken,
Mm.
and it's only 3 of y'all that's gonna fit in that small ass food truck. And you talking shit to all the KFC workers, all y'all working for the white man, entrepreneurship.
Mm.
You can't even afford in 2 ways to get all the customers from KFC to come to your chicken spot because you can't do that much business.
Mhm.
You can't hire any more people, and that KFC employ more black people than you can. So if you're going to do the entrepreneurship, don't be selling it for what it isn't. You ain't going to be creating jobs. You ain't about to build no wealth. The only way you're going to build wealth is you exploit labor. That's the only way you're going to do it. So if you want to go get a chicken shack or sell chicken out of a bus, a reconditioned bus, then do that. But just don't call it what it's not. And I think that's the argument.
Okay, and I think I think it shouldn't be sold as this is how you get rich. I get that part, but this is how you get freedom of not having to do other people's bidding. When you're talking about having my own businesses, this is the freedoms I had.
But
I
you're
had a
still
spot
doing the
where
bidding, though.
I had a spot where I could play my own music. I had set my own hours. I was able to have that type of freedom where I wasn't working under somebody and I had to do what they said to do. So it wasn't about me. Ooh, I'm gonna be rich. It's more like I got my freedom to do it how I want to do it.
That's
it.
beautiful. No, but
And
that's beautiful. But that doesn't necessarily mean that. Again, I think you're narrowing that down to what's good for you personally, or what brings you life or joy, right? So somebody else is like, what brings me life and joy is being able to make sure that I can spend time with my family. But if I have this job and this job is demanding 70 hours a week from me, and this job is only paying me a certain amount, and I have to get a second job because I can't make ends meet with this job because how the economy works, and I'm stressed out and struggling and trying to figure out ways to feed myself and feed my family, right? That's not freedom, right? So the point of it is like, what is the larger population struggling under? The larger population, most of the population is always going to be workers. As Jad pointed out earlier, the whole idea that entrepreneur is not like 350 million people in this country are going to wake up one day and be entrepreneurs, and that's again success, because if everybody's an entrepreneur, then no one's a worker. The economy doesn't work like that, and economics doesn't really work like that. People are going to be, for the most part, right, overwhelmingly, are going to be working to make things happen or do things. They're not going to be the owners of individual enterprises, and then that's how they get free. Because even again, under the capitalist model, they don't want everybody to be entrepreneurs. They may want you to think that you could be an entrepreneur. They may want you to have that identity of it's your fault if you're not at the level I'm at. But it's just not how the economy works or whatever. So the real question becomes, how are people, other human beings, how are their needs met and taken care of when they're producing the wealth?
And then there's also the part where this is literally the messaging that the elite wanted to give black people, that entrepreneurialism is the pathway to freedom, that being a boss is in fact freedom.
And that's word to Killer Mike.
Word is bond. Shout out to Killer.
No, so well, one thing Killer Mike, I guess halfway got right. I hear the freedom. I hear the freedom, but let's go back to the chicken. Where's the chicken raised and developed for you to get the chicken to sell it and cut it and break it down and cut it? And where's that happening at? You doing that all in the truck?
What are we talking about? Chicken?
Because you
We
said
got
you
stuck-
make you
Somehow we
you
got
can make
stuck on the
better-
chicken analogy, and we never left the chicken analogy.
Because you making better chicken. You making better chicken. So
Than
are you
KFC.
raising you raising the chicken? Are you giving them that little what do you call it? Some whatever thing they're giving them to make them become develop faster. Do you have a chicken farm? You chopping them in half? Like how's the chicken get to your truck before you cook it and sell it?
Shit, I don't know. From the
Well, you
chicken
better know.
place.
You better know. You better know.
Well, okay. If we talk about, I got my pizza and pizza dough from Roma distributors.
Rome?
Roma.
Roma.
Oh, Roma. Okay.
There's a Roma's Pizza here, actually.
Mhm. Yeah, they distribute
Yeah.
all those type of things.
Well,
So-
then you ain't free again. You got to get you still ain't free.
No, I'm free to do my business how I want. That's the freedom I'm talking about.
That's
Not the
true.
not.
There's
It
industry-
is.
there's
It
indi-
is.
there's
I
indi- there's-
had
there's industry
a
regulation.
I had a Nat Turner pizza. I had a Queen Mother Moore pizza.
How
I
much
was
it
able
cost?
to name stuff the
Right,
things
and
I
I put-
wanted.
I have
That
the
was my
Asada
freedom.
Shakur. I have the Asada Shakur Chrome browser theme.
Oh,
Free
I'm
at
done with
last.
y'all.
Free
Let
at
me get one of my Wu-Tang members up in here.
I got-
Hiram Rivera.
I got-
Oh my God!
Oh my
no.
God.
Oh my God!
From back
Hiram
to
know what
work.
I'm talking about. Can
No,
we
he
get
don't.
Rad off the screen here? What is Rad doing on the screen still?
What are we talking about? What are we talking about?
Barely chicken and pizza. I mean, that's what.
You said what?
Air Dr. Black Capitalist Fantasy. He's
Can
living in
somebody-
the world of make believe.
Can somebody take Rad off the screen for a minute?
Hold on,
I
hold
don't even
on.
know who put
Who
that
did
up
it?
I
here.
got it. I got it.
I don't know. I
I
didn't
got
put
it.
it
I
up
got it. I
there.
got it.
All right.
I thought it had a, you know.
I thought Jared did that. My bad.
Yo,
No, I didn't
cash
do
rules everything around me, Hiram. Let's get it.
No, Hiram came to tell
You don't
you.
read, beloved.
Y'all bugging.
Marks.
Y'all bugging. I'm telling you, man. I'm just saying, man. This dude. Okay, I get it. Entrepreneurialism is not freedom to do everything you want, but it's damn sure a little bit of freedom to do some stuff how you want to do it.
Why don't you just stop using the word freedom then? How about like that? Just stop. Just pick another word.
So I know Hiram came here initially to talk at some point about what's happening in Puerto Rico, and I thought so why don't we just have Hiram as a good segue transition? Hiram could start off by talking about the freedom that Puerto Rican businesses have afforded the people and the entrepreneurs down there in achieving their sovereignty. That would help. Then
Do-
Ear-
I don't
Ear-
know
Ear-
what
I walked in.
if-
I
if Ear Doctor goes to Puerto Rico and sets up a pizza place,
That's
Do we
freedom.
need a break so he could collect his thoughts?
I don't even know what I walked into.
I know. You just put this man
that
on the
sounds like the
spot.
beginning of a good joke.
Yo,
Ear
whatever.
Doctor went to
You
Puerto
guys
Rico to
have
set up a pizza place.
But I wouldn't sell pork, so I don't think it would work.
he
What
said,
kind of pollo?
You guys are having pizza debates? Is that what this
"No,
is?
it was a discussion around should bosses make more money than workers." And Ear Doctor was defending the black petty bourgeoisie.
You know. You
And
know.
John Hope Bryant, I guess, tipped it all off, right?
John Hope Bryant and all of that. And I'm sure John Hope Bryant would say if Ear Doctor were allowed to go down there and set up a business and help other Puerto Ricans get their credit rating up.
I was
'Cause
defending
the
the
only
brothers
problem-
and sisters.
The
that
only
got big
problem facing
dreams.
Puerto Ricans is they don't have a 730 credit score.
Credit risk score. They'd all be free.
They'd
I
all be
was
free.
defending the brothers and sisters that got big dreams and not scared to take the risk.
Again, that's this again. Who's again? So the poor are punks.
I didn't say the poor. I'm saying people that are
Punk-ass poor
scared.
people
to
scared to
take
go out here
risks.
and make this money. That's why
There's
they
some
poor.
people that's shook. They don't
That's
want
it.
to.
Leah
A lot
said
of people are scared to fail, and y'all can't front on that. People
the
are scared
Puerto
to
Rican
fail, so they don't
mindset.
take risks.
it. You're right. It's the
That's
Puerto
true in
Rican
life.
mindset.
What is you
Exactly.
talking?
What's that got to
What
do
is
with
you
the
talking
economy?
about?
What's that got to do with the economy?
Thank you.
That's
Nothing.
true. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, people don't always take the chances that they want to take. There's different reasons and rationales for it. What they got to do with how the economy?
Because they
or why
deserve to
people
suffer,
poor.
come
Yeah.
out.
But
That's the
but
point.
but
And that's
but
unfortunately,
also-
that's the end point of it is like it's this Darwinian argument of like, you know, I took a chance and so I deserve this or I deserve that, and if you didn't take this other chance, then you fuck you deserve all you get. So is this sort of like world of the mighty, which again is propaganda and built into us. Like it has no truth in reality, has nothing to do with how economies are structured, has nothing to do with how people are suppressed or oppressed for not only labor, but racial dynamics, class dynamics, and all the rest of it. Nothing to do with any of that, but it becomes a good stand-in argument so that we don't have to deal with the larger issues of how the economy is built on the backs of oppression and the backs of like workers who don't get paid what they deserve in order to feed themselves, feed their families, and they get paid enough to keep the machine going, which benefits the billionaire class or the capitalist class. That's the larger argument that people when they are stuck in the idea of it's a doggy dog world and I got to get mine, and if you don't get yours, it's stuck. No, it's stuck. It's stuck.
But what if the entrepreneurs, particularly the black ones, are afraid to rebel? They were afraid to engage in revolutionary
struggle,
process.
dare to win. Dare to struggle, dare to win. So in other words, you're a punk if you ain't free, and you're a punk if you're poor.
What do you think? What do you think about the entrepreneurs? They're afraid to buck the system, so they're gonna try to exploit and have the homicidal response to white pathology.
That's too many big words.
Okay,
what I'm saying is
they don't eat each other up instead of dealing with the white boy.
Break it down for me, bro.
How about that?
Excuse me, I don't know all the big words y'all use, so thank you for breaking it down. You can fix your face up there.
I just don't believe you. I think you playing you. But all right, go ahead, man.
Black entrepreneurs scared to rebel. How about that?
Black scared to rebel against the system that they got in. They know what they're getting into.
They have no interest in rebelling.
Yeah, that's what don't make no sense. You don't get into a system like
they scared, so they take the easier route and try to exploit each other.
I don't know about that.
I think so. I mean, if the workers are afraid to fail, then the black entrepreneurs are scared to rebel. Is what I'm saying.
I don't know about that. It depends on the person, each individual. But let's take a break and then we'll come back and talk about Puerto Rico. Ho! Y'all with that?
You had to do all that. You had to do all that.
Scratch some of that Puerto Rico.
Oh, come on.
Yo, spin that shit, man. Spin that shit.
Yo, big up for all my baricos out there. Big up to, you know what I'm saying? Mira.
Way wrong.
J-Lo. Big up to J-Lo. Big pun.
Doctor, you just missed my double entendre. I said spin that shit. And for you, it goes two ways. Spin it, but spin it because you're a black capitalist. Spin that shit, bro.
That wasn't good though.
But if you got to explain it ruined. But if you got
exactly, thank you. Appreciate it.
I had to explain it. He said he don't get
not
the big
just
word.
to him. I didn't get it either.
We all out here heard that.
I didn't get it. I'm not even going to front. I didn't get it.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break right here on No Other Than the Remix Morning Show. Let's go. Let's get y'all a little remix on the remix right here. Y'all with that? Let's go. All right, check this out.
I should have seen you jump. I should have seen you jumping right from the start. Don't be so many lessons. I'm not to mess with broken heart. I should have seen you jumping right from the start. Don't be so many lessons. I'm not to mess with broken heart. I should have seen you jumping right from the start. Don't be so many lessons. I'm not to mess with broken heart. So many questions. When this began, we was the perfect match. Perhaps we had some problems, but we working at it. And now the arguments are getting loud. I wanna stay, but I can't help from walking out. Let's go it away. Just take my hand and understand. If you could see, I never planned to be a man. It just wasn't me. But now I'm searching for commitment and other arms. I wanna shelter you from harm. Don't be alarmed. Your attitude with the call. You got me stressing. Soon as I open up the door with the jealous question. Like when can I be? You're killing me with your jealousy. Then my ambitions to be free, I can't breathe. As soon as I leave, it's like a trap. I hear you calling me to come back. I'm stuck for love.
All right, let me take you to a time and place. We're talking about 1997 off that album Wu-Tang Forever. Wu-Tang Clan Name of that song is Bells of War. Mixed with a little bit of 2098. We're talking about Tupac Shakur off that album Are You Still Down? Name of that song is Do For Love. Alright, with that said, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, go to patreon.com, become a member over there and get footage that's rare. And yeah. Go to the bottom of the screen as you have seen. Go to our website, blkliberationmedia.org. Donate over there. We are demonetized, so that would be the move to make if you want to support. And we love your support, so thank you for that. All right, with that said, let's get back to it right here on the Remix Morning Show. Let's go.
Got to catch this paper, the box Equasia, Glacier, Melchizedek, a skyscraper. Understanding the continents of Africa and Asia, and free the black man from the slave labor. Sang.
Yeah.
I like that.
It was all right.
As a Wu-Tang loyalist, I'm offended by you putting Tupac over Wu-Tang.
Wait a minute. Let's not act like Tupac didn't do a song with Redman and Method Man.
I don't care what he did. I'm just saying I don't appreciate.
Oh man,
Tupac
listen.
over Wu-Tang beat, but it's your show. It's your show, brother.
Damn, boy. I'm getting. Oh,
you know the song I wanted to hear, Ear Doctor. The one I wanted to hear.
What you want to hear?
Is the 50 Cent diss
for 50? Oh.
The Cameron, 50 Cent, the Curtis.
Curtis.
Get Hiram off the screen, man. Get him off the screen. Get him off the screen.
Oh my God, Curtis. That was some funny shit right there. Yo, Cameron is a character, boy. That guy need a stand-up show.
Hiram is a character. He need a stand-up show.
Yo, so that is your
music. I'm just talking about music. That's a banger.
Okay, that is your break for the day. I might catch y'all later, maybe.
This guy.
Don't say y'all, Renee. I'm a bystander.
Jared started it.
I'm just in the car. I didn't know he was going to commit that robbery. I'm just in the car.
I'm talking about mixtapes. Ear Doctor's playing some dope blends. I just want to chime in on the hip hop real quick.
Opportunity.
Someone said Hiram is 30. Hiram ain't no goddamn 30-something years old. What's wrong with y'all? That nigga old.
Hiram,
yeah.
Come out. You gotta let the Hiram tidal wave go, man. It's already
Ricky supposed to come at 9 o'clock.
I know.
Yeah, it's still 8:58.
Oh shit.
You know, Ricky might be very,
very on time.
What's the word I'm looking? Yeah. But yeah, anyway, Remix Morning Show, everybody. Black Liberation Media. Please like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon, blackliberationmedia.org. Ricky saying 9:15. So
we want to wait for Ricky. Do we stall until we wait for Ricky?
We got the first segment. We probably
said 9:15-ish.
Let's just do some news with you on the news. So this could be your audition for Remix Morning Show, and then when Ricky comes on, we can do the Puerto Rico thing.
Puerto Rico.
Oh,
I think we should stop doing that.
My bad, bro. My bad. We need to get the Bezos. Where y'all want to go?
I don't care. Wherever. Yes, Ricky said, "Yeah, wait for Ricky." Happy Friday, y'all.
Don't take my segment. All right, who got some news?
All right,
slap the map. He slapped the map.
Yeah, let's send y'all here. Slap the map.
I think Ear Doctor left.
Oh.
Puerto Rico.
It is a good song, though. That's it. Yeah.
It is, of course. It's classic.
That song had like 6 Puerto Rican parades in New York City on lock.
Exactly.
6 straight summers on lock.
That isn't actually. I don't know if this is going to come up because it's not. I don't think it's politically appropriate necessarily. But have you all been? I'm assuming Kamal, you have. Geechee, you been to a Puerto Rican Day parade? Okay, just checking. Yeah. Anybody out there in the remix chat been there before?
Puerto Rican Day parade.
Huh?
They're not good anymore. After 2000, they started going down.
I think my last one was seeing Big Pun there. I think that was a long time ago. Long time ago.
I'm wondering if I've been since 2000. Maybe I haven't. Maybe I caught it before it fell off. I feel like I've been to just so many different things. Anyway, whatever. Just
I've
curious.
been to Puerto
Okay.
Rico.
I've still not been. It's on my it is on a list of destinations. But I still have not been.
I dined and dashed in Puerto Rico. Big up Puerto
Ricky,
Rico.
Ricky in there starting trouble, man.
I know. I don't know about the. I don't know.
Ricky don't gotta be on the show no more.
Oh wow.
I don't know if that. I don't know about that, bro.
That's no.
Nothing compared. No. Dominican Day, no.
That's a
No.
little rough. That's a little rough. That's a lot there. That's a little Air Doctor-ish.
That's a reach. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really ear doctor.
Oof, yikes. Not ear doctor-ish. God damn.
Why are you coming at me like that? I don't even be on screen.
By the way,
Yeah.
Geechee, that Bezos story we did talk about yesterday. I don't know if
Oh.
you wanted to revisit it.
Oh no.
You know.
They ain't y'all ain't slashed out the
Well,
lunches.
in fact, because I actually made a note that from that though, so I'm glad you mentioned anyway. I the note I had for us to ask today was so the Bezos story was that Bezos is refusing his Washington Post from endorsing a particular candidate. A couple editors apparently have resigned, but what does that mean for us? Does Black Liberation Media endorse candidates? Are we as a media outlet endorsing candidates, or has Ear Doctor as our sole leader told us we're not allowed to, and threatened us to let us walk if we have problems with it? Like, what is semi-seriously, like would we as a platform ever want to talk about officially as a collective endorsing any particular candidate or not?
I think until we develop the after party, it would make more sense to lay out our lines and say these people are the closest to our lines. But I don't know how we would endorse.
I mean, we've more or less said that. We've run a sort of set a terrain. Ricky said no, thank you.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't.
Did we compare the Washington Post non-endorsement to the LA Times non-endorsement? Did y'all talk?
Oh, I
about
didn't
that?
know that part. No, I didn't know that. The LA
Well,
Times is
I think in the article they said both of them did it.
Oh, did they? Who
But for different
owns the
reasons.
LA Times?
Say it again.
Who owns the LA Times now?
Patrick Soon Xiong, and I'm sure I'm screwing up his last name. He's an Asian entrepreneur who so basically, and this is only what's interesting about the LA Times one is that apparently his daughter is political, and they did not endorse. They were scheduled or primed to endorse Kamala, and then pulled it back. Again, supposedly everybody's clouding the issue now, but supposedly because the daughter
It's more radical.
got in and was like she's anti-genocide, and it's like, how can we endorse a pro-genocide candidate? And maybe moved her father to that position, or maybe they moved that position, so they also canceled their endorsement. But from another angle of again the politics of not endorsing somebody who's committed genocide, as opposed to not endorsing because they favor Donald Trump or whatever. So that was interesting.
So the AP says newspaper non-endorsements at Washington Post, LA Times fit a trend, but their readers aren't happy.
And both, and I would say real quickly, both, and the telling of the story from both, from whether it is the Washington Post or the LA Times, when it gets told in other newspapers or other media, it's an attack on them not endorsing Kamala Harris. And so it's attack on the irrationality of the newspapers being controlled by these so-called outside forces, their owners, who are stopping them from doing, don't say it outright, but basically the gist is that they're stopping them from doing the right thing for these terrible reasons or these back reasons, which should not play a role in the endorsement process, which I guess is supposed to be done through the editorial board of some kind.
But
So, yeah, the LA Times says they've acknowledged losing thousands of subscribers, but
So I mean, I wonder if that speaks to like so Bezos, because they talked about losing maybe 200,000 digital subscribers, but in that article, he was saying presidential endorsements do nothing to tip the scales of an election. And then he also said no undecided voters in Pennsylvania are going to say I'm going with the newspaper's endorsement. So I wonder how y'all feel in terms of, especially with entertainment media and social media, like how influential are the LA Times and the in those newspapers? Do you think they still have the same, I guess, impact?
probably not as much now. But I think, but I don't agree with that last statement. I don't believe that at all. I think there would be a lot of people who, if they had any doubts, would refer consciously or not to what relevant to them dominant media have to say. And similarly, this is why elites have been willing to own media outlets even at a financial loss. They don't own them to make money. So the loss of subscribers, I think, is less an issue than the overall impact on the political discussion in society. And I don't know that you need to have the biggest subscribers to necessarily have a certain level of influence, especially if a lot of power players and outlets still pay attention to what you have to say. So anyway, yeah, just some initial thoughts on that.
Hiram.
Okay, no, go ahead, Axel.
No, I was saying Hiram or Kamal. Like, what are your thoughts in terms about the influence?
I'll speak for Hiram. So what we think is,
as my lawyer,
he's got a case. He's got a couple of cases. So real quick, I think there is influence, but probably not as much as there used to be. I mean, the New York Times continually picks neoliberal Democrats, and it doesn't. Obviously, they're the biggest newspaper, the most influential newspaper around the world, and a lot of even the local newspapers and local media outlets use the New York Times as the bellwether for how they cover stories and what stories they cover. So I don't think it's the influence that maybe at one point it was, but I agree they still dominate the narrative around how these things get talked about, the conversations on how these things get talked about, which means they continue to influence how people think about the world around them and how they think about these issues. So again, even though both these newspapers, which are also, competing with the New York Times, so the New York Times is happy for them to like sort of take a hit on this kind of thing. Both these newspapers, for different reasons, decided not to endorse Kamala, and both of them though get attacked for the same reason, and they tried to underplay the reason, particularly in the LA Times, as an important factor as to why someone shouldn't get an endorsement, because they are helping to run a genocide.
Yeah, I think the influence depends on the class of folks that you're talking about. And so these institutions still, right, they're still seen as the most legitimate when it comes to like news, when it comes to that sort of thing. And so I think for a very particular class of folks, those periodicals still hold a lot of weight, right? The most influential, the decision makers, they still look to those newspapers as, even though we can spot their biases, as seeing like the go-tos, the most legitimate for the news and for the unbiased opinions. For the rest of the overwhelming masses of the public, maybe not. But I think for a particular class of folks, those periodicals still play a role.
I think Bezos was doing his best to, I guess, restructure people's mind that they could be non-biased or independent in thought. And I think, as maybe Kamal said, in terms of still running the dominant narrative. But I went back to read Parenti, and I think Parenti was saying something. Now, there's a journalist from the New York Times who said that they, just like the average person, is attracted to the wealthy, and so their stories are kind of influenced by how they cover the wealthy and kind of always centering the capitalists, kind of like Air Doctor was suggesting. But I wonder if you think also like the journalists in these spaces, are they more so telling the side of the wealthy because they're required to, or is it more of like an influence that these major news outlets forced them to do that, if that makes sense?
Well, as Chomsky says, who we should be reading on issues of like this or whatever. You know, I mean, of course, people have independent minds about certain things, but they don't usually get into these positions unless they have already shown themselves throughout their career to be the type of people to follow a particular line and or path of thought, right? And so again, people talk about propaganda in the United States. It's not necessarily based on all the time you got to whip somebody over the head. People naturally have fit into, well, naturally they've been propagandized and they want these positions and they fit into the worldviews that allow them to get these positions. And so they may be, again, independent thinkers within that who are struggling through, how do I get stories through that I think are not the ones that the editors want me to tell, but those are the ones who are swimming against the stream. That's not who you find in these particularly these elite newspaper or television stations. It's people who have already brought in, they already believe, they believe in empire, they believe the United States is exceptional. All the things that Chomsky has taught us about propaganda holds true in this case too.
I just want to throw out there that while we're talking about the Post and Bezos, just real quick, that just as a reminder that I'm just looking at this here. If I'm reading this correctly, I'll just share this. It's still their cloud service that provides a bulk of the profit margins for Amazon. Cloud is also a reliable source of profit thanks to high software margins. Amazon Web Services delivered $9.42 billion in operating income, or about 62% of Amazon's total. And it's 17% of their overall revenue at $143 billion. So, and I bring that up only to remind that you know, as much, if not more so than packaging and all of this, is their cloud services. And then one of their largest clients, of course, is the CIA and the intelligence community. So Amazon, that's what Amazon is here for. So, you know, when it comes to Bezos and his empire, the Washington Post is just a small, he didn't do this to make money. You know, Murdoch didn't buy the Wall Street Journal to make money. You know, they do it to influence the conversation, limit the conversation, propagandize and so on. And if I'm not sure if this don't they get about 40 billion from the U.S. government? I'm not entirely sure, but to Kamal's point earlier, or even Geechee's point, all of our points, that this is where their goal is to get government support, whether through contracts or policy or whatever. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there real quick.
And in some ways, that's why Elon Musk bought Twitter, right? It's not like there's no way any rational person could have thought that shit was worth $30 billion or whatever like that. I'm not saying this dude is rational, but it's an echo chamber. It's a way of lifting up a voice and seeing social media as the new way in which people are getting information. And so therefore we need to dominate that, or he individually need to dominate that even more. And then he sets up the algorithms and everything else so that his voice or the views that he wants out there plays a leading role in the voice that you hear. Like, you know, I don't like follow or anything to Elon, but his everything he does keeps popping up in my threads. It's not as bad as it was when he first set it up or whatever, but it's like he has the ability to direct conversations. And again, you can see even the friction in the elite structure, because then you see how the New York Times has article after article beating this dude down. But obviously they have their own elite that they are battling or their own voice that they're battling to put forth as the voice of the empire. So
yeah, no doubt. Very good. So anybody got something else they want us to get to as Ricky endeavors to get here? We hope that she's of course driving carefully and
oh, she's driving.
I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I just assumed she was rushing somewhere. Just want her to, you know. safely get to her destination. That's what I was assuming. But
But I also wonder if there's a way to measure, like, I guess the impact of social media versus entertainment media versus like the Breakfast Club, they could possibly more be influential than a New York Times or something like that. But I wonder if there's a way to measure other than subscribers. I mean,
it depends again on the audience, right? Like I think they all have their target audiences and they all play their specific roles. When you're talking about these large publications like the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, those sort of things, right? There's a particular milieu of folks that it caters to. So politicians, right? Upper class, ruling class folks, management CEOs, they tend to be the audience that those publications are speaking on behalf of, right? And speaking to. Mm-hmm. Breakfast Club, these other things, they're talking to a different group of people, right? And so all these avenues, the social medias, they're talking to a complete different demographic, different class of folks. And so they all play their role to push ultimately the same ideas, right? And because as we're taught, the ideas of society are those of its ruling class, which is why they own, right? 6 people own all of the media, basically, right? To push this narrative. They all play their specific roles for the specific class of people that they're speaking to. And so the New York Times, Wall Street Journal is seen and held up as being, those are the smart folks. Those are the experts. Those, right? They know. Breakfast Club and everything else. So I think when you're talking about influence, I don't know if you can just see, right, who's the most influential. I think you have to look at it based off of their target class and their target audience.
no doubt. Remember, Onyx Impact said that they were dangerous, and that the Breakfast Club.
They took it back. They took it back.
What do you mean
They
they took
said
it back?
They said they have dangerous guests sometime, but they took
No,
it
that's
back.
what I was saying. They were dangerous in that they were susceptible to being taken advantage of by bad actors and negatively impacting the Black audience that they so well serve in every other instance.
Yeah, I think the media has learned a lot about how not to, we talk a lot about what made the Panthers back in the 60s and 70s, what got them to be the sensation around the country that they were. And that was, at some point, they got covered by mainstream media, and it broke them out of what they were doing in California. And so a lot of the, mainstream media has since, quote unquote, corrected itself on a lot of that.
Damn right.
Surrogates of Black left or certain Black politics to represent what's supposed to be the left. And so it's even mainstream media in its attempt to show that it's covering news in a truthful way will at times have people who break through, but for the most part the format is to not allow people who are on the left to break through. It is to put up surrogates who are more liberal left and make them seem like they are the voice of they are the reasonable voice of a counter argument, and so they should be listened to, but not anybody further left than that.
Greg Carr. My bad.
Or if they can't be bought, right? If you look at the Panthers too, you put them up, and then these publications also make celebrities out of these folks and pull them away from their politics. And so you go from breakfast programs to living in penthouses with Elaine Brown and stuff and doing things you ain't supposed to be doing because now you've attained this level of celebrity, right? And we see it through our movements. Once your movement leaders get into the New York Times, they're on the MSNBCs, and they become these celebrities, their politics shift, right? And now it's more about being that and pulling. So on one end, they don't want to spread awareness and spread the message. At the same time, they also use it to co-opt folks, right? Turn them into celebrities and pull them away from the people, pull them away from the politics, and completely distort things.
That's how you bring me on. I don't get no introduction.
Oh, damn.
I don't need no introduction.
Wait a minute. Ear Doc just said it was going to be a break and then bring you on. What happened?
We started talking. I kept talking. Hey, doctor, come on up.
I was trying to do a little production, but Ricky said just bring me in, coach. So
Yeah, with an intro.
You know what?
Here's
All right, we're gonna take a quick break and then we're gonna come back right here on the Remix Morning Show. Big up, everybody. Welcome out to the Remix Morning Show, all my hermanos and hermanos. Yes, we do it for y'all out there. Listen, we're going to come back and talk about Puerto Rico and some other topics. Right now, hit that like button, subscribe, become a member at Patreon, and go to the bottom of the screen and check out blkliberationmedia.org. That's right. I know y'all don't want to talk about capitalism, but guess what? Money helps this channel continue to go. So please go there and donate. Anyway, so I would like to go ahead and give a quick shout out and some love to no other than we're talking about Frankie Cutlass, y'all. Why not? Let's get to it. Puerto Rico. Yeah, y'all know what it is. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about Frank Malave. Yes, he is a DJ, record producer, songwriter, straight from East Harlem, New York. Parents coming out of Puerto Rico. He was down with the Flip Squad, down with Funkmaster Flex and them. He actually came from the same apartment building as Mark Anthony. Yeah, so if you don't know Mark Anthony, you better go ask J-Lo. All right, boom. So he came and started DJing, doing some freestyle music. It's like a house type music. And then after that, he came out in 1994 and started his own record label and came out with the single Puerto Rico. And that killed him. That hit the charts real hard, especially after J-Lo used the song in the Super Bowl and got even more bigger and bigger. And then he got a single he did on DJ Khaled's album For Free featuring Jake that got him a double platinum award. So the brother is not only a DJ, he's also a producer. He's been doing this thing for a while. He got 3 studio albums, The Frankly Cutlass Show, Politics and Bullshit, and New Wine. So go check those albums out. Just wanted to give some love since it is Hip Hop History Month. All right, there you go. Frankie Cutlass, y'all. Puerto Rico. Ho. Now let's get back to the show. Yeah.
But that El
You really
Preso
think
shit
you're
is the shit, though.
What were you saying, Jared? I didn't hear you over Ricky's compliment.
That you rude as shit.
I am. I'm a rude
You
boy.
ain't get no intro. You did all that breaking, and I still ain't get no intro.
And instead of an intro, you get a bunch of the little side jabs you said.
I know you're not talking, Geechee, y'all. You've been side jabbing me all day. But
No, I
anyway,
wasn't.
let me do it like this. Ricky, right.
Oh, there you go.
AKA Erica Queen.
Put some respect on that name. Put some respect on that name. Some verb.
Is that better?
Appreciate
Look,
it.
We good. No problem.
That was wild though.
What? Come on. That's crazy work.
Called on you. You need the authorities called on you.
Was that an old picture of that dude, Frankie Cutlass? I feel like that dude, I think that wasn't like when in his prime, because he looked like he's 70 years old with that bandana around.
Damn sure did.
Yeah, I was like, what's going on?
That's the 1994.
That's too much roast.
That's the
Campoya.
94 picture?
I think that's the 94 picture of that album cover, yeah.
Roast Campollo.
That's too much roast Campoyo, boy.
And he said all your hermano and hermanos.
Hermanos and hermanos.
You said
Man, it needs to be stopped.
You can't stop me. Hey, listen, y'all have a great rest of the show. I'm gonna go and do something.
Where you going?
Close up shop. Peace.
Mother.
let's put Ricky.
I'm listening to El Preso in the background now. That joint is crazy. So you want what? Ricky, please.
We have a special guest on, like, right? Haydn Rivera, the great Erica Kane.
You gotta do all that.
Yeah, I'm trying to do a segue, mother. Can I do a segue?
Do it without the accent.
I didn't do it. What accent did I do?
Yeah,
Haydn Rivera. That's how I speak. That's my natural tongue. I'm not.
I could do it with accent. The great Kamal K. Franklin. GTO. Erica Kings.
What the fuck is going on?
What's happening? This is a top tier production that you can only find at Black Liberation Media.
Hiram Rivera. Jared
That's
Ball.
so disrespectful.
It's
Yo.
like wrestling. It's like Luba Litta. Like that's what it reminds me of. All right, go ahead, Ricky. Do your thing.
Get us right, Ricky, please.
Yeah, well, I want to say hi to my auntie. She wants to be seen. What happened? You people
Oh, and she-
you feel me? Yes, I tell y'all TV.
Auntie.
You saw this old sexy woman?
You blurred the back out. Come on back and tell her not to blur it out. You know what I'm saying?
Like, let me show you the sexiness here.
You want to see the sexiness.
Bring back your backside, mama.
Yay!
Auntie. Come down. Hey.
Hey.
Auntie. Uh-oh.
Wait.
See, this is why we can never be good capitalists. You know what I'm saying?
This is not legitimate media.
My fault, y'all. I'm late because I drove to Philly this morning, so I am in Philly, at my people's house. But yeah, I asked Tyra to come on because there's been a lot of conversation around Puerto Rico, what happened at the Garden, but there has been less conversation around these elections, and I do think that they have a lot to do with that statement that was made in terms of who's running and who's in the lead in Puerto Rico, and what does that actually mean. So yeah, Jairo Rivera. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, like what you do. I know there's a long list, and I know the chat know you, but for those who do not, if you want to run off all the fabulous work that you do, and then we can begin the conversation.
The remixers know me. For folks who don't know me, I'm Hiram Rivera, here in the city of Philadelphia, originally from New Haven, Connecticut. A longtime organizer for the past 20 years. Organized primarily got into organizing around the issue of political prisoners. First, the Puerto Rican political prisoners in the 90s, then the New African ones through my time with the Malcolm X grassroots movement. Been involved in the Puerto Rican independence movement since I was a young man, a teenager, officially as a member of the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party. Since then, working in different nonprofits and primarily running community organizing trainings and political education trainings for abolitionist organizations across the country. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, so I think we talked about it earlier this week about the comedian, I guess, that I've never heard of, but apparently he exists. That was at the Garden that talked about Puerto Rico. I mean, he made a lot of statements, but I think the statement that's sticking mostly is that, it's a floating trash island, I believe he said something like that along those lines. So since I have had the displeasure of witnessing every Puerto Rican celebrity that they can grab up give a statement, even what's the former talk show host, Rivera, Geraldo Rivera.
Geraldo Rivera, yeah.
He has even tapped in. We've heard from J-Lo and Ricky Martin and all the important Puerto Rican figures that they brought out to the light to speak on this. But I did in terms of the context, right? Because even when we see these figures, when you talked about just now with the Puerto Rican political prisoners, that has a lot to do with this sort of decolonization, revolutionary struggle that happens in Puerto Rico that I can't say I've ever heard J-Lo speak about, or Ricky Martin, or any of those things. So I did want to get maybe some context or maybe the contradictions that are arising as they're talking about what's being said about Puerto Rico, and then the reaction from these sort of popular Puerto Ricans.
Yeah, so the comment that was made by the comedian in Madison Square Garden definitely sent waves of disgust, frustration for folks all across the country and in Puerto Rico. I think it hit much harder now because of the election season. I think it hits harder now because of what has been happening on the islands since 2017 and Hurricane Maria. I mean, this is not the first time folks have talked trash about Puerto Ricans or Puerto Rico, right? It's not the end of the world. But I think that the impact now, given the political moment that we're in, both here in this country and the elections over there, and coming out of Hurricane Maria, where the islands were completely devastated, they were abandoned, right, by the federal government. Over 4,000 people, almost 5,000 people lost their lives, and continues to be an extremely traumatic event for Puerto Ricans, both on the islands and here in the diaspora. And I say the islands because Puerto Rico is actually 4 islands. It's not just one, right? And so that comment also takes into account what has been happening since the Fiscal Control Board was taken over. And so Barack Obama's Promesa bill that basically put control over the island's economy and government in the hands of a fiscal control board who's tasked with getting money that they believe is owed to Wall Street, right? A debt collection of about $78 billion that they say Puerto Rico owes Wall Street. And so since 2019, they've closed hundreds of schools. They have privatized public infrastructure. They privatized the electrical grid, handed over to a company in Virginia named Luma. Since then, power in Puerto Rico has been flighty at best. Blackouts like the country hasn't seen since the days of the 20s and the 30s. You're talking about the mass displacement of people. Half the island is basically Airbnbs at this point. You have an Act 22 that gives income tax relief to wealthy citizens from the United States to come to Puerto Rico and settle in Puerto Rico and don't have to pay federal income taxes. But those same benefits are not granted to Puerto Ricans, right? It is only for foreigners, and specifically white folks, to move from the U.S. and come buy up Puerto Rico. So you've seen hundreds of thousands of people be displaced out of Puerto Rico and pushed into the United States. And that's just a small piece, right? The tip of the iceberg. And so when you take all of that into consideration, the whole island of garbage thing falls on people in a very different way because of all of these things that are happening. You have then folks like J-Lo, Mark Anthony, and these celebrities who pop out and feign like they're offended. And they could probably be offended for whatever reason, but they're mostly offended because it was a Republican who said it. They're mostly offended because it was a Donald Trump supporter who said it, right? These folks don't really care that much because they would have been offended by the privatization of the beaches. The idea that white folks can come from the States and buy a public beach and then privatize the beaches on an island so that local folks can't go to the beach on an island, right? They don't get offended again by the closing of the public schools. They don't get offended by the amount of corruption at the hands of the colonial government that lives there. They don't get offended by any of these things. And so them being upset about the garbage comment is more about politics. It's more about trying to get support for Kamala, right, in these elections than anything else.
Right. I don't know if anyone else has a question before I jump into the elections, but I was just thinking as you were talking about that, if we understand Puerto Rico to be a colony, which it is, then I think there's some comparison, I think, that one could make in terms of the reaction to these racist comments, right? In terms of what we're seeing in the election, because there's a lot of things that Trump is saying or the Republican Party is saying that's being held up as the ultimate example of racism, right? And they're doing that in lieu of any of the policies that this administration is making. And I'm thinking, I've seen that play out in terms of Puerto Rico. We've seen that with the Haiti eating dogs, right? The way that particular diaspora or people who are colonized or their homelands are in a colonial situation due to imperialism, etc., they sort of they kind of internalize that, because for me, I feel like I'm from New York. For as long as I remember, Haitians and Puerto Ricans, and immigrants are talked about, right? There's a lot of conversation around that. So for as long as I can remember, that's just been, I don't want to say it's normalized, but that these are things that you hear about certain people in certain countries. So when we hear it from Republicans, per se, it seems to hit harder because we're being propagandized to see that this is the true evil party. But policy-wise, as you were explaining, the whole island is practically privatized. The amount of it's like also a military base for the U.S. Yeah. They are testing old weapons to send Ukraine and things like that in Puerto Rico. So there is no, I guess, so to speak, pride that you see that exists when they start to be talked about, right? Then it's ultimate pride. Then the flags are coming out and everybody remembers that they're Puerto Rican. But when the policies and things like that are occurring, everybody is quiet. So I just see that sort of comparison in terms of what we see with our own folks here in the U.S. and how they are responding to certain things. The response to Haiti and then this response.
Because of the colonial reality, right? Puerto Rico is captured by the United States in the invasion of 1898 at the time with the Philippines, Cuba, and Guam, right, in the trumped up Spanish-American War, where the United States intentionally blew up their USS Maine, right, as a false flag to enter a war with Spain and capture their colonies. And so since 1898, Puerto Rico has been a colony of the United States. Excuse me. Puerto Rico, for a fact, is the world's oldest colony, if not the oldest colony in the world. Puerto Rico has never, ever been free in its existence. Since the invaders landed in 1493, Puerto Rico has been captured first by Spain and then by the United States, which is really important, right, to understand in this context. Under that system of United States occupation, citizenship is imposed on Puerto Ricans in 1917 through the Jones Act. Puerto Ricans never asked to be U.S. citizens. In fact, Puerto Ricans went to war to fight against that and ultimately lost, right, because they couldn't beat the U.S. military army at that time. The reason citizenship is imposed on Puerto Ricans was to be able to draft them into then the world wars. And so since then, Puerto Ricans have been used as cannon fodder in all of the world wars, Korea, Vietnam, and every war the United States has had. The United States holds on to Puerto Rico, one, because of its economic benefits, right, of extracting resources from it at a time when sugar was a major thing in the Caribbean. The reason why the British held on Jamaica and all these places, right, when sugar was still king. But to your point, it is a strategic military location. So as it sits at the end of the Greater Antilles in the Caribbean, right, when Cuba goes communist, then Puerto Rico becomes even more important to the United States to be able to contain the Caribbean, right? So you have Florida and the mainland on not the mainland, because it's not our mainland, the United States on one end, and then Puerto Rico on the other end, which was used as a military base to contain, right, the spread of communism in the Caribbean and Latin America. So at one time, Puerto Rico held 13 U.S. bases, which was more military bases in one piece of land than anywhere else in the world, including states in the United States. Right? They used the island of Vieques to bomb and practice bombing runs, right? Culebra and Vieques, two islands. They tested Agent Orange on the island before they sent it to Vietnam, right? And they would lease the islands to other countries to also bomb as well and practice their bombing runs. From the island of Puerto Rico is where the United States would invade. Nicaragua is where they would invade. El Salvador is where they would invade Latin America, Panama, and they would have all these invasions of Latin American countries, which would create this dynamic and this issue between Puerto Ricans and the rest of Latin America, where folks would be like, what the hell? I thought we're like, how are you allowing this to happen? The reality is that Puerto Ricans don't control anything in Puerto Rico. Congress does. Every decision that gets made in Puerto Rico, even through their puppet government, has to go through Congress first. And so in that situation, while it plays this key role for Puerto Rico, for U.S. politics, specifically strategic military containment politics, Puerto Ricans can't vote. So they're citizens, but they can't vote for president, right? So you have this sort of like second-class citizenship. The same with the Virgin Islands, the same with Guam. So we're talking about St. Croix, right, and St. John and St. Vincent, right? Not St. Vincent, excuse me, but the Virgin Islands. They all are living under these same conditions. And so what has happened is that Puerto Rico has always had an independence movement. There's always been wars to free Puerto Rico from the United States, going all the way back to the beginning of the invasion in 1898. It picked up mostly post 1930s, and we're talking about elections to bring us to what we're here, is that the United States used to have governors. So the highest ranking office in Puerto Rico is the office of the governor, like states here in the United States. Mm-hmm. All those governors were imposed by the United States all the way up until 1948. Reason being was that the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party in the 1930s, after engaging in elections, found that the elections were controlled by the United States. They were bought off by the United States, and they weren't real elections at all, but they were just colonial systems created to separate the people, divide them into this sort of like electoral parties, split the masses up, and then have them bickering over who was going to be the administrators of the colonial state. At that point, the leader of the Nationalist Party and the apostle of the Puerto Rican independence movement, Dr. Pedro Albizu Campos, said that we will not engage in elections, and instead we're going to go to war with the United States. And so from 1934 on, the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party engaged in open guerrilla conflict with the United States, right? This prompts the United States to then make a decision to allow Puerto Ricans to vote for their own governors as the head of their state, which brings in Luis Muñoz Marin, who is held as, a legendary figure, but who was nothing but an alcoholic and an opioid addict who was under control of Hoover and the U.S. government. With these open fights with the Nationalist Party and the Nationalist Party back with the United States, you get things like the attack on the House of Representatives by Lolita Lebrón, right, and Rafael Cancel Miranda and the folks in 1954. You get the assassination attempt of Harry S. Truman in November 2nd of that same year. You get the uprising in 1950, October 30th, 1950, that spread across Puerto Rico, right? Numerous assassination attempts on presidents, elected officials, and kind of birthed what eventually in the 60s moved to an underground armed resistance movement that had up to 10 different organizations who are engaged in open conflict with the United States. This is where you get the creation of the Puerto Rican electoral system in 1948 when they vote for the president. At that time, the Puerto Rican flag was illegal. So the Puerto Rican flag does not become legal until 1950, and it becomes the official flag of the country in about 1952. But prior to that, the Puerto Rican flag was seen as a symbol of independence and would give you a mandatory prison sentence for even possessing the flag. And so these folks, specifically the Nationalist Party, would wave the flag, would go out waving the flag, engage in this armed conflict, right, as a form of anti-colonial struggle. Those folks, when the United States bombs Puerto Rico in 1950, because they bombed the towns of Jayuya and Utuado to quell this uprising, mortar fire, the military, and bombings forced thousands of folks into exile, and they came to New York, they came to Chicago, they came to other places. This shifting of the economy as well, moving Puerto Rico from an agricultural economy, primarily agricultural economy in the 30s and the 40s, moving into this industrialized factory economy, devastated the livelihoods of so many Puerto Ricans, especially those who were living in the countryside, and forced a mass migration in the 40s over into the East Coast as well, right, into Chicago, Philadelphia, in New York. All of this is important because this is the growth of the Puerto Rican diaspora in these specific states that became Democratic Party hotbeds for so many years, and the role that Puerto Ricans played in that. At the same time of that forced migration, you have Black folks who are refugees of the South, who are being pushed out of the South because of Jim Crow, because of Ku Klux Klan violence, and moved north, right? So it is known as the Great Migration. We understand them to be New African refugees. Those are political and economic refugees who were forced into the ghettos of the North. Those two communities meet in New York City. They meet in Connecticut. They meet in Philadelphia. They meet in Chicago, right? Which is why Puerto Ricans and New Africans, so-called African Americans, have always had this sort of like relationship that no other so-called Latino group has, right? This sort of interconnectedness with all of its complications that come with the racism, the colorism, all of those, the xenophobias, all those things. But there is still this interconnectedness, right, that has shown up in politics through folks like Arturo Schomburg, who shows up in the relationship between the Young Lords and the Black Panthers, Dr. Mutulu Shakur, the Republic of New Africa, right, the first martyr of the Republic of New Africa was a brother with the last name Vera, Puerto Rican, who was killed in Detroit. And so there's this interconnectedness that comes because of U.S. exploitation, because of white supremacist violence, right? Economic and physical violence that brings our two communities into the states where they're at. We bring it back real quick to wrap this up. The creation of the electoral system in Puerto Rico then means that you have three parties. There is the Popular Democratic Party, which their whole thing is maintaining the status quo. They want to maintain the colonial status of Puerto Rico. There is the New Progressive Party, which is the statehood party. So the PPD aligns, you'll be consider them kind of like Democrats. The PNP, the New Progressive Party, is statehood party. They're more your right-wing, hardline, right, like Republican folks. And then there's the Puerto Rican Independence Party, who has always had a very small electorate. So when folks come out to vote in the elections in Puerto Rico, you see the two parties who switch back and forth is the PPD, the pro-colony folks, and the PNP, the pro-statehood folks. And they go back and forth because of basically what happened the extreme violence that was met and unleashed on the independence movement from the 30s all the way on, the displacement of folks, the denying of jobs to anyone who advocated for independence, right? And the overall repression, and then the propaganda of saying that if Puerto Rico goes independent, we're going to be the Dominican Republic, right? For Dominicans, the boogeyman is always Haiti. For Puerto Ricans, the boogeyman is Dominican Republic. You don't want to be the Dominican Republic. You don't want to be Cuba. They're all starving. Right now, they add Venezuela to the mix. They're all starving. They're all whatever. Reality is that Puerto Rico, if it were to become a state today, would be 30% poorer than the poorest state in the union, which is Mississippi. On average, Puerto Ricans make a median annual income of about $20,000. Puerto Rico primarily lives off food stamps, right? Puerto Rico is as poor as any other of the islands in the Caribbean. It just has this facade to make it look like Miami because of the United States. Right. And so you have these political parties. You're also talking about a Puerto Rico and a U.S. system that infected Puerto Ricans purposely with cancer, the cancer experiments of Cornelius Rhodes, of whom the Rhodes Scholarship is named after, who thought that Puerto Ricans were subhuman animals who did not deserve to live, and infected them with cancer at the same time that they're running cancer experiments in Tuskegee. You have the sterilization project that starts in the 1930s, where they were sterilizing Puerto Rican women purposely without their knowing to keep them in the factories because the men had been drafted into world wars and you needed the women to work in these new factories. A program of sterilization that lasted all the way into the 80s, right? You have all these things that have scared the people of Puerto Rico into ever thinking of independence, and so they keep going back and forth between these two parties. To wrap it up for real, what you have seen is incredible amounts of corruption, incredible amounts of abuse, because that colonial entity is just an administrative colonialism. It doesn't govern anything. It doesn't make any decisions because Congress makes those decisions. Then you just see a wide scale of corruption, massive abuses of power that have left people at this point now thinking about something new. And so after 2017, when Hurricane Maria came about, the people were like, we're done with this. They elected a governor in 2019 from the statehood party, right? The Republicans, who are aligned with the Republicans. Text messages among that group were leaked in which the then governor, and his cabinet folks of that party were mocking the dead. And they were mocking all those people who had died in the hurricane. And they had talked about fantasies of a Puerto Rico without Puerto Ricans. Again, our independence apostle, Don Pedro Albizu Campos, had told us back in the 30s, right, that the Americans, the United States, wants the bird cage without the bird. They want Puerto Rico without the Puerto Ricans, much like what they did to Hawaii, right, in the Kingdom of Hawaii, in terms of trying to kill and eradicate that culture, eradicate that civilization, that group, and just keep the land for their hotels and their military excursions. You have the protest, the great protest of 2019, where they forced the governor to leave and created openings for a new opportunity. In that, a new political party was created. I'm trying to translate in English, it doesn't really work, but it's like the Civilian Victory Movement Party, right? Started to gain traction. For the first time, the Puerto Rican Independence Party got up to 14% of the vote, increased from 3%. And what these folks have now decided to do was form an alliance. And so in this election coming up now in November 5th, what has happened is that those two organizations have merged in alliance and created an alliance, right? They didn't merge, but they created an alliance that said, you run for governor, we're going to run for mayor of San Juan, you run for commissioner, we're going to run for here, and we're going to ask all of our folks, kind of like a united front, we're going to ask all of our folks to vote for these specific individuals, regardless of their party. And so right now, for the first time in the history of Puerto Rico, the Independence Party is in second place in the vote. And so the statehood party is holding on to about 33% of the vote. The Independence Party is holding on to 32% of the vote because of the swaths of young people who have joined in, who are like, we're tired of this. We're tired of the corruption. We're tired of these people. We're tired of this whole system. Right. And now is creating a new opportunity for the first time in the history of Puerto Rico through the elections, right, of electing something new.
Okay. So entonces, ¿qué pasó con la Junta? So what about the board? I know you just talked about Arceo, who was unseated and the family is gone, but what about the board? That's one question. And then the second question, because you kind of facilitated our conversation with August Nimps, like would you say that's a good reflection of the people on the left or the revolutionaries being able to run their own candidates and being able to count their force to see what time it is in terms of revolution?
Can I add something to that too? To that point, could you speak specific? Because even when you said the Independence Party, the politics of the person that's running, if you can speak to that.
Yeah. So the politics of the Independence Party has always been democratic socialist at best. The politics of the MVC is the acronym for the other party. The MVC is they don't claim a political line, but their lead person, their head of their party is democratic socialist Trotskyist at best. And so what does that mean? It means that they're running on what they've been able to do is, as the Independence Party, move away from independence sloganeering and independence rhetoric, right? And so the way they've been able to capture the majority of folks that they've captured is moving away from the status question and talking about anti-corruption and what is best for Puerto Rican people, and what's best for Puerto Rican young people who are being forced to move out of the country because there's just no opportunities, there's just no jobs. That forced displacement has moved folks to the United States. But at the same time, right, they're not moving back to the strongholds that once were the Connecticuts, the New Yorks, the Philadelphias, the Chicagos. They're moving to Florida, they're moving to Georgia, they're moving to Texas, and it's reshaping the electoral dynamics of those traditional red states, right? Because of this influx of Puerto Ricans that are coming in. Not enough to completely overchange them, but enough to turn them into swing states and create different dynamics. But back to the original question is that since they've moved away from independence, there has been this reframing of what decolonization looks like. This is where you get AOC and Nydia Velázquez, two congresswomen in the United States, who go to Puerto Rico and then give their endorsements for the alliance, is what it's called, La Alianza, the alliance. The Democrats have a vested interest in this, as the Republicans do. Right? Because for the Democrats, they see this like, this is great. The more Puerto Ricans we can get in the United States means that we can hopefully turn these swing states blue, because Puerto Ricans overwhelmingly vote Democrat. You do have your Republicans, you do have stuff. They don't vote at the same levels of almost 100% that so-called African Americans do, right? But they do vote overwhelmingly Democrat, enough to win Obama, Florida, right at that time. There are 1 million Puerto Ricans that live in Central Florida. And so the politics of Florida continue to be reshaped and will continue to be reshaped with this influx of Puerto Ricans that keeps coming in. Decolonization now looks very different, where for this group, the Puerto Rican Independence Party and La Alianza, is they're talking about a process of a constitutional convention. So it is happening on November 5th, as well as the gubernatorial campaigns in Puerto Rico is also a plebiscite. The United States allows Puerto Ricans the right to vote for their status every 4 years or so, whenever they figure it out. And the Puerto Rican population can choose statehood, they can choose Commonwealth, or they can choose independence. The reality is that it's a sham. And to answer the question again, all of this is a sham. Is it a revolutionary opportunity to elect people? No. You fall into these ideas of pragmatism that we see here with different organizations. So this Alianza would look a lot like, in their policies, in their articulations of their politics, like the Working Families Party here in this country, right? And it's a heavy emphasis on pragmatism. It's a heavy emphasis on strategy, right? What is the strategic moves? These elected officials, they sound like they're not with us, but it's because they just don't have the political openings to do so. But if we can be really strategic and move these chess pieces, we can get them to do what we want them to do. It's a farce. It's a lie, and it prevents people from imagining something different, because you're constantly being pulled back into the election. Don Pedro Albizu Campos taught us already that the elections are captured and they're tools of the colonial government to maintain a colonial reality over the people and to suppress the legitimate fight for self-determination that includes violence. It included the bombing of an FBI office in San Juan. It included the killing of the ambushing and killing of U.S. Navy sailors in Vieques, right? It includes the bombings of restaurants and facilities here in the United States as part of our legitimate struggle for independence that goes off, all the way back to 1898, and before that when we were fighting against Spain. Like I mentioned before, the final say in anything that happens in Puerto Rico economically and politically sits with the U.S. Congress. Therefore, whoever is elected in Puerto Rico can manage very local things and can try to stop some of the corruption, but it cannot stop the Fiscal Control Board, to what La Junta, which you talked about, Geechee. That Fiscal Control Board is there to oversee Puerto Rico and basically strip Puerto Rico of everything for the next 10 years on behalf of Wall Street, because that is what Barack Obama had put down. This electoral body, the governor, has no say over that Fiscal Control Board. And so again, it is a sham. Elections are a sham. Now, can it create slightly less difficult issues? Yes, it can. Can it sort of like hopefully try and stop the influx of settlers coming into Puerto Rico to buying up everything? It can try. But if the United States wants its white folks to take over Puerto Rico, it will continue to facilitate that process, and this group cannot stop that, right? But because of their politics is democratic socialism, and it's not, they've created this decolonization idea that for them, through this constitution, everyone, pro-statehood people, pro-Commonwealth people, independent people, can all come together and decide together, and then they'll take that decision to Congress and be like, hey, Congress, we Puerto Ricans have decided this is what we want to do with our country. Congress will take that decision, fold it up really, 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 really tight, and pop it right back up their behinds, because they don't care. Because as long as Cuba is socialist, as long as Venezuela is socialist, as long as they can maintain neo-colonies like the Dominican Republic, right, in the Caribbean, Puerto Rico will always be important to U.S. interests in the regions to lock that down. The only way Puerto Rico can be free is through legitimate decolonial struggle, right? That has to come from the people themselves, not from electoral parties, and that has to come by way of struggle, both in the archipelago of Puerto Rico and here in the United States.
A quick curiosity question, because you brought up, like, with so many Puerto Ricans moving out of Puerto Rico, and my assumption then is that you have Yankees moving into Puerto Rico. I saw a couple of things a few years ago, like these tech guys and tech giants and different folks like that trying to set up hubs in Puerto Rico. So my quick question, just based on ignorance, is, are those folks now allowed to vote in Puerto Rican elections? That's one question. And then two is, with the depopulation of Puerto Rico and for all the things that you just spoke about in terms of them grabbing the land and using it for military and for hotels or tourist industry, right? What is the, other than what does the next 10 years look like? Maybe let me phrase it like that. I know you don't have a crystal ball. What does it look like, you think? Yeah.
What you saw, and just being mindful of the time so we can end on time for the folks.
It's Friday. It's Friday. They don't care about time. It's Friday.
What you saw post Maria was a lot of crypto bros who, so not just tech folks, but specifically crypto bros who moved to Puerto Rico, specifically the dude Brock Pierce, who used to be a child actor, who was running away from rape and pedophile allegations here in the United States, ran to Puerto Rico and is trying to create a crypto paradise. And what they want to create Puerto Rico literally is one massive crypto farm. And so you have a lot of crypto bros who have been going to Puerto Rico to turn the island into one big crypto farm. The statehood party is all for that and helps facilitate the selling of land, helps facilitate the closing down of schools to allow for these settlers to come in, buy up land, buy up properties, and do this. And so in that sense, in the elections, right, the elections can influence that to some sort of way. But what you have is that. And so with Act 22, that says it gives tax incentives. What you'll see in the next 10 years is the continued displacement. So you have people like Jake Paul and his brother who have moved to Puerto Rico as well and set up shop in Puerto Rico because they don't pay income taxes. You have the crypto bros who moved to Puerto Rico because they don't pay income taxes. You have a lot of millionaires, white millionaires who have come and who are buying up everything. What they're doing, they're privatizing the beaches, they're Airbnb-ing everything, right? Because they don't have to pay income taxes, and so they can just have their own little island paradise, right, while displacing food. So what you will see in the next 10 years is something radically doesn't change. The continued displacement and depopulation of Puerto Rico, more of them moving to the United States, more white folks moving into Puerto Rico, and the ultimate decimation and destruction of Puerto Rican culture, Puerto Rican history, right, and the stealing of our land altogether. These folks who are running for office under the Independence Party and the Alianza are trying to stop this through elections. The problem is that what has always been the position of the traditional independence movement, and specifically a very nationalist position, was that engaging in U.S. elections legitimizes this false concept of citizenship, that we are Americans, which we have always said we are not United Statesians, right? We are Puerto Rican. That identity was imposed on us. That citizenship was imposed on us and hasn't granted us shit, hasn't granted us anything. Puerto Ricans among Latino groups in the United States sit at the bottom in terms of economic status, employment, and education, right? That's including undocumented folks, right? Citizenship has done nothing for the so-called New African and African Americans in this country, right? With the Civil Rights Act, it has done nothing for Puerto Ricans at the same time, except mass exploitation. And so by engaging in elections, you are legitimizing a colonial system. You are legitimizing colonial rule, right? By wanting to administer their colony. You are legitimizing a false citizenship and a false identity that doesn't belong to us. And you stop, again, the imagination, the organizing for true decolonization and true independence of the islands. And all you do is sort of like lesser evil your way to total displacement and total eradication, where there will be no Puerto Rico left in the next 25, 50 years, right? Much of what they have tried to do to Hawaii, and props to the folks in Hawaii who have fought tirelessly to hold on and grasp to their identity, their culture, and their homeland, right? This is the same thing that they're trying to do to Puerto Rico. And so engaging in these elections only continues to facilitate that process and keeps us away from the fight that we need to fight. Unfortunately, this is allowed to happen because the Puerto Rican independence movement has been defeated, right? And so those organizations no longer exist. And what you saw post-Maria and at the time of Maria was a nonprofitization of the Puerto Rican struggle. And so when the Maria Fund came through with organizations like the Center for Popular Democracy, the Action Lab, and all of these folks, right, and their Maria Fund, when they came in to Make the Road New Yorks and all of these folks, when they come in, OSF, Ford Foundation, all this folks, you propped up all these nonprofit organizations to try to meet the needs of the people who were suffering at the time when the state collapsed. Right? What you end up having is a lot of identity-based organizations, right, that are focused really on siloed identity-based issues. You have a lot of mutual aid stuff, which we understand mutual aid is not what we understand now to be mutual aid. It's just another form of charity. It's just giving folks food. It's not mutual aid, even, out of respect to true anarchists in the way that Kropotkin truly intended it. It's just charity. But that's all you have right now. And then now this electoralism, and using this pragmatism, this working family style pragmatism, right, that has come up. The traditional independent struggle in Puerto Rico has been defeated and beaten back. That now has put us in this very precarious situation where you don't have those organizations who literally put their lives on the lines, fighting back and trying to keep the yanking invaders at bay, both in Puerto Rico and here in this country. What that does is then it makes Puerto Rico even more of a political pawn, because again, these nonprofit organizations are tied to the Democratic Party. These foundations are tied to the electoral parties here. And so you have, again, a Democratic Party that wants more Puerto Ricans to come to keep turning these states blue and to vote in the elections. So with the 100,000 folks who are in Georgia, the 1 million who are in Florida, the thousands and thousands in Texas, when you look at this election now, with Kamala, this is why you end up with J-Lo and Mark Anthony and be like, oh man, Puerto Rico's so bad, because you want to rile up the hornet's nest. You want folks to be really pissed off and then tell them you should go then vote for Kamala Harris. It was the Democratic Party that imposed the Promesa bill. It was the Democratic Party and Barack Hussein Obama who enslaved Puerto Ricans under that Promesa bill. It is the Democratic Party who continues, right, who enacted Act 22 so that these millionaires can go and buy up Puerto Rico, right? The Democratic Party has never been a friend to Puerto Ricans. And to bring this full circle back how I got into it with the Puerto Rican prisoners, the Puerto Rican community has been able to free up to 25 political prisoners. We have freed all of our political prisoners, which is an astounding accomplishment. But that came by way of negotiations with the Democratic Party. So when the members of the FALN who were accused of sedition and of bombings in the 70s were arrested in the 80s, they were freed in 1999. That coincided right with Bill Clinton coming out of office and Hillary Clinton moving to New York to become the senator of New York when Puerto Ricans were the largest Latino group in New York City at that time. The deal was that we will let your prisoners go if we can secure those votes to get Hillary into Senate and start her political career. And that's what happened. One prisoner stayed behind. He's like, I'm not going to accept your conditions, who was Oscar Lopez Rivera, and he stayed in prison. There was a mass movement to get him out. Again, we come back when Hillary, again, is running for president. And the Democratic Party makes that deal again and says, we will let your prisoner go, right, if we can secure these votes to do that. That was heated debates inside of the Puerto Rican independence movement because, like, we don't side with the United States. We don't align with their parties. We don't align with anything, right? We want this Babylon to burn and let our people go. So again, it was the strategy moves. What do we do to get them out? A lot of the same stuff that has to happen to get our new African prisoners out behind the scenes, right? Are these concessions that have to be made with the state because we have not built the power to be able to force that or break them out ourselves, right? It's just an unfortunate reality. That is how the Democratic Party gets tied to the Puerto Rican struggle and the Puerto Rican movement that brings us here today full circle. So that when they say garbage, right, folks can get riled up. You get the J-Los, you get the Bad Bunnies, you get all these folks that then say it's Kamala, right? To get up at this point about 5 million Puerto Ricans who live in the United States to ride on board, at least the majority, with Kamala, and especially in these swing states like Florida, right, Georgia, Texas, where now many Puerto Ricans reside because they're leaving the North and they're leaving Puerto Rico and they're going into the South.
Right. Just I guess to conclude, because there's a few things that I wanted to know as you were speaking, when you were talking about the NGOs and the Ford Foundation, I was thinking to myself, well, it's a good thing his grandson is on John Hope Bryant's board, because, you know, Puerto Rico will be saved. But I was thinking about in terms of swing states, right? Allentown. Now, I speak about Allentown, Pennsylvania in general, because, you know, remember when Blue Bird was still in office in New York, they were doing those not coupons, but those kind of lotteries that they would give people money to move out of New York City. And where a lot of those people ended up is in Allentown. So when we see the statement is made at the Garden, right? Which is in New York City. And we know that there's the New Yorkers and all of that, right?
Yep.
The emphasis on speaking about the statement has been in Pennsylvania. And to your point about these swing states is there is a majority, I think, now in Allentown is Puerto Ricans. They have a huge Puerto Rican majority in Allentown. It's I don't even want to say suburb because Allentown is now the hood. Because they treat it as such. It's very overtly occupied. A lot of people I know that moved into Allentown are instantly arrested over any little thing. But that is the demographics in that town in Pennsylvania that not too many people even really know about, but has housed the majority of New Yorkers that have been pushed out.
Right.
They're all going into Allentown. So when we look at the demographics of Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania, that is a result of not just the displacement from Puerto Rico, but the displacement from these major cities. And I think that's less discussed in terms of how we even are analyzing swing states, because when we talk about, and I think Jackie talked about gentrification being maybe a micro of settler colonialism, but when we look at where our people are being pushed out of in these major cities and where they're being pushed into, and then this sort of emphasis on the Democratic Party lines and the propaganda around it in these swing states, it's because our people are now in those spaces. Even when we talk about the Haitians in Ohio, right? The thought is like, why are there so many immigrant Haitians in this little town we never heard about? But this has been the dynamics of immigrants getting pushed out of major cities into these swing states and then becoming, I guess, the make or break for the elections. So there's a lot of emphasis happening in Pennsylvania around Puerto Ricans where people would not think Puerto Ricans are.
Yeah, and those are the commercials that were on TV in New York telling folks to move to Pennsylvania, right? The conversations purposely to try to shift the demographics and the electorate in these so-called swing states, right? And so the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, they don't do anything that doesn't benefit them, right? And do that. Funny thing is that, not a funny thing, but I don't know what you call it, right? That Trump rally inside of Madison Square Garden, right, happened on the same day, the 50th anniversary of the Puerto Rican Socialist Party's rally. They had a rally in solidarity for the independence of Puerto Rico inside of Madison Square Garden, where over 20,000 people were inside of Madison Square Garden, rallying in solidarity for the independence of Puerto Rico, of which Angela Davis was there speaking. Miss Ella Baker spoke there. A number of different people spoke. And so 50 years to the day of that historic rally is when you have Donald Trump and his clan in Madison Square Garden doing what they do.
Okay, so it sounds like on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's all I had. I deeply appreciate you, Hiram. I know we've been saying that we wanted to discuss this. I think the last conversation was that I segued with, I was watching Housewives, and because Bethany Frankel had the Be Real nonprofit that exploded post Maria, and she was getting all her rich friends on jets to go down there and give out those gift cards. So that was something that was taped on the show. And then also the Real Housewives of OC, a husband filed for divorce in Puerto Rico because he didn't want to pay any assets to his wife, right? So because there's no tax laws in Puerto Rico for USians. So it was a lot that I wanted to discuss, and primarily because I know we have comrades in Diaspora Palente, who are part of Black Alliance for Peace, but they're in Puerto Rico right now doing what you're saying. They understand what this election means, and that it is significant that independence is being raised to a point that it has not been raised in so long, but they're also there to shift as people are voting. We can go a little further. We go a little further than this.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing that you use, right? You use elections to try to enter the conversation with the large masses of people, to try to raise consciousness, to build up their politics. And so shout outs to all of the young people who have created these organizations, right? The new Puerto Rican organizations here in the diaspora. So Diaspora Palante, the folks at Hoopy, all the different Puerto Rican young people who have created these organizations and who are definitely trying to keep the struggle moving forward. The independence struggle continues. It still lives. It's in a low point, but right, there are generations who are seeing that the streets in the United States are not paved with gold, and that there needs to be true decolonization. And for us, it doesn't mean just self-determination and independence, but it also means a restructuring of our whole identity and culture as a people, and to bring us back into the vision and to the dreams of our forefathers and foremothers who advocated for a united Antilles, a united Caribbean, right? And so that decolonization also has to include a shifting in the Puerto Rican mentality, right, to posit us back into the broader Caribbean family, racially, socially, economically, culturally, that we have been unfortunately removed from because of our status as a U.S. colony. Right. And unfortunately prevents us from being fully engaged in a lot of the political things in the rest of the Caribbean, and often seen as an outlier upon which a lot of anti-Blackness can be played out, a lot of racism, xenophobia can be played out. And so true decolonization means removing the United States and restructuring and reconstituting our identity and culture as the most colonized people in the world, and an opportunity to reinvent ourselves and take our place back on the world stage as full members, right, of our Caribbean family. And so that is the one that we continue to fight for, and we will see, or die trying.
True. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us. Remix Morning Show is coming to an end, 15 minutes over, but well worth the extra time spent. Hiram, thank you so much, man. It was really great. I think everybody in the chat, everybody in the audience appreciated your breakdown. Yeah, and everybody have a good weekend. We'll be back on Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Peace.
Back at it.
Saturdays with Renee.
Thank y'all.
Peace.
Remix. 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 Remix.